Attention! This video is in English. If you want to watch the Romanian version, you can find it on my channel or click on the link in the description below. Atenție! Acest videoclip este în engleză. Dacă vrei să vizionezi varianta în română, o poți găsi pe canalul meu sau accesând linkul din descriere. Max Payne, a game that a lot of people remember nowadays as one of the most realistic and unique third-person action shooters at the time of its release, is the one that makes the topic of this review. In the next minutes you will find out why Max Payne was such an influential game even up to this day, and a lot of interesting facts that you might not know about it. This is the first part from this series, so stay tuned for more. And if you enjoyed this type of content, subscribe, like this video, share it, turn on the notification bell, and also watch other videos from this channel. This is Dave from Golden Age Gaming Productions, and you're watching the Golden Age Gaming review of Max Payne. Enjoy! Max Payne is the game that most people remember as the one in which you shoot at guys in slow motion, but not a lot of the gamers that have played it know its origins, how its development started, and how much the game differed from the initial concepts to its release. First of all, Max Payne was developed by a relatively unknown Finnish company at that time with the name of Remedy Entertainment. The initial ideas for the company were made in 1994 and it was turned into an official one in 1995. Nowadays, Remedy Entertainment has a way more prominent position in the gaming world, having released successful game series such as Alan Wake or games like Control, and also others not that popular among the gaming community such as Quantum Break, for very well known reasons. Prior to the Max Payne series, which is the one that have brought them the most critical acclaim and recognition, they have developed some other small games such as Death Rally, which was initially supposed to be named High Speed. They have collaborated on this project with the company Apogee Software, especially through its founder Scott Miller. And through the need of dialogue for the said title, Sam Lake has made his appearance in the company, later becoming the creative director of Remedy and also having a key role in the development of Max Payne, since he was going to be the writer for it, as well as the one that has given the famous face of the character, but more about that on the story section of this review. Remedy then proposed Apogee Software, which by the way later became more known as 3D Realms, more ideas of new games to be financed, among which was also one about an isometric shooter, a game to be called Dark Justice. Since the 3D engines were having more and more success in the gaming world, it was fairly quickly decided to turn the game into a 3D one. The name of the game was then changed into Max Heat, and they even had the Dick Justice name as a possibility at some point, but eventually the one that has remained in our hearts has been vehiculated, namely Max Payne. The game has taken inspiration from various sources, including the John Woo movies, where there are scenes resembling the slow motion mechanic present in Max Payne, among other action movies. The fact that The Matrix was released at about the same time has kind of helped at making Max Payne more popular, as this slow motion idea was on a roll. The developers also included various references to the already named movie in the game. Thus, the idea of slow motion was there from the concept stage, and even though it was not the first game to take advantage of this type of effect, Max Payne was special through the way it was used, talking about what was later going to be called the bullet time mechanic. There were some very ambitious ideas in the development of the game, such as the fact that a few team members from Remedy went to New York to take photos of the environments and what it was fit for the game, as Sam Lake eventually centered the story of Max Payne around the hard-boiled cop with noir accents. This way, the game became more story-oriented rather than only counting on its gameplay. The development of Max Payne took quite a lot from 1997 to 2001 when it was released, and it has suffered a lot of modifications, most of them graphical related. And of course, the hardest part of development was the implementation of the bullet time mechanic, but after a few delays, Remedy had finally released Max Payne in the summer of the year 2001 for Windows PC. The game was published by the Gathering of Developers company, but the console ports were released by Rockstar Games, who then bought the rights of the franchise, but having Remedy as the returning developer for the sequel, Max Payne 2 respectively. Gathering of Developers was later bought by the parent company of Rockstar Games, Take-Two Interactive, who later became the company known as Global Software, which was eventually absorbed under the 2K label. Later, Max Payne was released on more devices, most notably being the mobile versions of the game, including an unofficial PS Vita port, among others. The Max Payne version used in this review is the PC one, with a few mods in order to make the game more stable on modern Windows devices. When it comes to Max Payne, it must be said that the graphics were probably one of the first things noticed by its audience. And that's because they were very realistic at that time, whether we are talking about its particle effects, animations or textures, and maybe not as much about the face models. Anyway, from the initial trailer reveal to its release, Max Payne has suffered significant modifications graphical-wise, and not only that, as the camera has also been improved by a mile, as it can be seen. Remedy has started working on a proprietary 3D graphics engine right from 1997 that was later called the Max FX engine. It was a true staple of graphical advancements at that time, that it even was incorporated later as part of a graphical benchmark. As the name implies, Max Payne uses the Max FX engine for its rendering. However, once again the bullet time effect remains the most impressive part of the whole game from a visual point of view. The color range of the game once again successfully completes the atmosphere of the storyline, almost having like a grayish filter added to the graphics. Everything is a little bit obscure, and most of the time lacking vivid colors. The sound effects found in Max Payne, while not extremely impressive, have done a good job at completing the atmosphere of the game. However, during bullet time, the audio is also slowed down, which creates a unique sound environment. At the same time, the game includes a very recognizable and fitting soundtrack, especially the main theme, which sounds good, at least for the first 50 times you've heard it, because you'll get to hear it a lot during the gameplay of Max Payne. But after all, the Max Payne theme is one that has remained as a legendary one in the gaming audio field of activity, at least in my opinion, as it sums up the suffering of the main character. The soundtrack was composed by Kartsi Hataka and Kimo Kajasto. The gameplay is, in my opinion, one of the strongest, if not the strongest part when it comes to Max Payne. In essence, it is a third-person action shooter in which you control a main character driven by his will to get revenge. However, if not for the bullet time mechanic, the slow motion mechanic, this game wouldn't have been the same and would have actually been a pretty typical shooter. The way they implemented this slow motion mechanic is fantastic in Max Payne, giving you some sort of a superpower that allows you to better aim at your enemies and have a better accuracy. You can both move freely in any direction in this bullet time mechanic, or jump in any direction in slow motion, which is what most of the people have done, in my opinion, in this game. But this bullet time is not overpowered, as you will easily die outside of it and even when using it, due to the fact that after you fall, during the get up animation you cannot shoot, which a lot of times catches you off guard. Also, a lot of enemies are bullet sponges, no matter with what weapon you're trying to kill them with, except maybe for the grenade launch. So in this regard, Max Payne is kind of cheap, but not to the point to consider it a bad game, but a little bit more balancing would have been nice. In order to restore your health, you'll find painkillers.
Pills would hold the pain back for a while.
but you must use them wisely, even on the easiest difficulty, due to what was said before. You must also be careful at the fact that these painkillers do not restore your health instantly, as it is a process that happens over time, so if you are in a critical situation and cannot hide to wait, you're kind of done for. The environmental destruction, particles and physics were also key points for this game, and you can interact with a lot of various items and even turn some explosive barrels into lethal weapons, as it can be seen. Talking about the weapons, there is a good variety of them, starting with the melee ones, namely a lead pipe and a baseball bat. Next you have the weapons that most probably will be the most used ones in this game, talking about the pistols. You have a Beretta pistol and a dual-wielded version of it, which can deal more damage at the cost of lower accuracy and consuming your ammunition. And the more powerful Desert Eagle gun, followed by two variants of shotguns, namely the Winchester pump-action shotgun and the sawed-off double-barrel shotgun, which can only shoot one barrel at a time, making it, at least for me, a pretty ineffective weapon. Later in the game you also get the jackhammer, which is a more powerful fully automatic shotgun. You then have the Ingram submachine gun and a dual-wielded version of it. Then there is the Colt Commando rifle, which is a pretty powerful and accurate weapon, however you also get it quite late in the game when the enemies are also stronger. You also have a sniper rifle, which has a pretty cool slow-motion bullet camera when shooting at enemies. Besides that, you also get very late in the game a grenade launcher and also throwables such as grenades or Molotov cocktails. You will kill with these weapons almost all the time pretty much the same enemy, the only difference being their texture, with the exception of some bosses that are tougher to kill or possess a more special weapons arsenal. There also were some weapons that did not make it in the final version of the game, talking about the MP5, the IMI Uzi, which is a different version of a machine gun, and even a Kalashnikov looking rifle. All the levels are as linear as they could be, but also include some simple puzzles from time to time. We have reached the point in this review which represents, in my opinion, the strongest part of the entire game, namely its storyline. The structure of the PC version of the game, because on consoles it's a little bit different, consists in 3 main parts, divided in 22 chapters. For each main part there is also a prologue. You can also access a tutorial level or a secret end level. There are various modes in the game, most of them being higher difficulty ones of the original one called the Fugitive. Thus, you have the hard-boiled and death on arrival difficulty levels, the first one also being a reference to a John Woo movie title. You also have the New York Minute mode, which is basically a speedrun version of the original levels. At the same time, there are 3 types of telling the story of Max Payne, namely through its core gameplay, through in-game engine cinematics, which are not particularly impressive, and through some cartoonish-looking, magazine-like images accompanied with audio and written dialogue, called graphic novels, in which, by the way, you will find that most of the characters are actually employees from Remedy, as doing this was more cost-effective for them.
Scout. See, Alex. Still on for poker Thursday night, right?
Like taking candy from a baby.
The game begins with its ending actually, and here is the main character, Max Payne. With his legendary voice played by James McCaffrey, as you could already see, and without whose performance this game and the entire franchise would not have been the same. 3 years before the first level, the Roscoe Street Station in 1998, Max worked as a detective for the New York City Police Department. One of Max's closest friends, Alex Boulder, tries to convince him to join the DEA with him, but Payne declines, saying that working covertly would be too demanding for him and his family. When Max returns home, he is perplexed by Michelle Payne's stillness and lack of responsiveness.
Michelle, honey, anybody home? I didn't like the way the show started. They'd give me the best seat in the house. Front row center.
Max carefully makes his way through his house and notices an odd V and syringe graffiti on a wall. As Max continues, his phone rings, he answers it and tells the unknown caller to dial 911. The caller then informs the detective that they were unable to assist him and hangs up.
I'm afraid I cannot help you.
Who is this? Hello?
He hears his infant wailing and his wife Michelle screaming. Michelle is in too much danger to reply when Max yells for her. When Max tries to enter the restroom through the door, it is blocked and Michelle is killed as the outcome. He then moves in the direction of his daughter. When Max goes to his infant's room, he discovers that his daughter has been fatally shot.
No, please God, no.
Max hears another junkie in the room exclaim, "The flesh of the fallen angels," and it is briefly overcome with regret before moving towards his bedroom. When Max enters the room, he kills the last shooter and then yells in desperation as he holds his wife in his hands. After the tragedy, Max finds out that the killer junkies who assaulted his home were under the influence of Valkyr, a previously unheard of drug. He gets in touch with Alex Boulder after the burial to let him know that he has been transferred to the DEA. After 3 years, Max and Alex finally make some headway in the Valkyr case after receiving a tip about Jack Lupino of the Punchinello crime family that Valkyr is being trafficked. Max starts looking for those responsible. One evening, Bibi, another friend of Max Payne, called him and instructed him to meet Alex Boulder at the Roscoe Street Station.
Bibi here. Something urgent has come up with Jack Lupino. You need to meet with Alex immediately at the Roscoe Street Station.
I hadn't had a face-to-face with Alex since I'd gone undercover.
Max realized he had a horrible feeling about the meeting and headed to the railway station during a snowstorm. After arriving, it was clear that something was off, and after killing a bunch of guys, he pursues to find Alex. You get to save a guy that opens a door for you and immediately gets killed after. You realize a heist is taking place, and after killing more baddies, you power up a train and use it to break through a barricade. Next, an explosion takes place that was set up by the Punchinello and Lupino's guys in the Roscoe Bank's vault. And after exploring more, you find out that they were stealing a substance called Ezio.
The Acer success story had recently been on every channel and on the cover of every magazine.
You then explode a door and find Alex later. Just to see him getting killed by an unknown guy, at least for now. Max then tries to get revenge on the one that killed Alex, thinking it was Lupino, and goes to his hotel where he meets the Finito brothers, which you'll then kill. After, they reveal that they knew about Max being an undercover cop and find a letter from Vinny Gagnetti, Lupino's right hand, talking about a deal involving this Valkyr with a mobster called Rico Muerte. Since the room 313 was mentioned, you go to find it, first killing a bunch of guys and traversing a roof.
Let's go already. Payne's gonna pay. Inspect.
The bad part is that Max Payne is then considered the main suspect for the murder of Alex, as he hears from the news.
A suspect was seen leaving the site only moments after the shots have been fired, and the NYPD is currently in pursuit of Max Payne.
You find the room 313, where there is a letter from one of the Punchinello leaders, Angelo, but with not a clear lead for Max. You then blow up a boiler to get to the next section, and get to a room with leftovers from a prostitute, including a writing in which she explains how it was selling adult recorded videos in that respective room involving high-class men to the highest bidder. You get to the basement of the hotel, find the place where the deal was, and some guys. Afterwards, finding Rico Muerte with the prostitute mentioned earlier, and you kill them both. Just to hear next from a switchboard a discussion between Gagnetti and a pimp. You need to find the exit done by jumping through some windows on the roof and killing more guys. Max then goes to a complex of apartments owned by Lupino in order to find him, and upon arriving you see Vladimir Lem, who blows up a car and makes his escape, but not before hitting a tanker truck which explodes. The explosions continue, this time from Lupino's apartments.
Another bomb exploded inside the closest slum building. It was a lucky break.
You enter a basement and kill a bunch of guys and create a path using explosives. Afterwards, you hear a phone ringing, and when you answer it, it is a mysterious guy called Alfred Wooden, who seems to be on your side and warns you about the police that are coming for you.
My name is Alfred Wooden. You must hurry. The police are on their way.
Including Bravura, that will be a more impactful character in the sequel from this franchise. You also find that Punchinellos were at war with the Russians, being the reason of the explosions that took place. You then again wander through some corridors until you find a door that only opens if you tell the password to a goon, and then you find a guy which helps you with that.
Okay, John, whoa.
All right, come right in.
It's a trap. It's Payne.
And continue towards Lupino's office, where you find Vinny Gagnetti. Max shoots Gagnetti, but not in a little way, as he proceeds to run on the roofs of the buildings, kind of like Assassin's Creed style, closely followed by you. Gagnetti reaches a roof where he escapes Max by jumping on a moving train, and you follow him doing the same. In the next level, you continue chasing Gagnetti, killing a bunch of guys and finally getting to kill him. Nope, he doesn't die, as Max lets him leave, which might have been a bad decision taking into consideration the events of Max Payne 2, but only after he tells Lupino's location, a club called Ragnarok, as he was the only one that knew it. Max reaches that respective club, where of course you kill a lot of guys, traverse some roofs again, even do a small simple puzzle, and find out that Lupino was either a Satanist or a mentally retarded goon, or both, due to the use of the Valkyr drug. You reach Lupino's crazy ritualic place, where you find him, and of course fight him, and also I killed him with his weapons just cause why not. At the end, Max meets his biggest weakness in this series, as he almost instantly falls for Mona Sachs. A character better developed in Max Payne 2 that was an assassin and Punchinello's wife's sister, called Lisa, and which tells you got the wrong guy, talking about ending Punchinello, which was a bigger threat, as she hated him for the way her sister was treated. She also mentions that Punchinello was the one that set up Max's fake conviction for Alex's death and proceeds to give him a drink cause why not? Surely Max Payne wouldn't fall for it. And 5 minutes later there's Max drugged from the beverages given by Mona. Thus, the second part of the game begins, again with a prologue, in which another type of levels from this game occurs. We are talking about nightmares that Max has, in which he relives his sad story involving the killing of his family in various circumstances. You got these corridors in a fitting point of view camera, following Max's wife and daughter screams, even getting to some sections where you must work on thin blood trails, which can be pretty annoying, as you can easily fall off them and then you have to restart the level. However, you find a key element in the story, namely his wife's Michelle diary, in which she tells about a file she came across involving something called Valhalla, but didn't have the time to tell about it to her husband, as he was too busy.
From now on, I would always find time for her. It was a hollow promise. Too little, too late.
Max finally wakes up from his nightmare, finding out he was being held captive. Max finds himself tied up to a chair and threatened with a baseball bat by a guy called Frankie Niagara, and after getting beat up with it and left alone by the baseball bat guy, you manage to escape and must carefully stealth-like kill some guys in order to get your weapons back. He then finds and kills the baseball bat guy and lives by a car, just to be stopped by Vladimir Lem, with a business proposal. Vladimir wants you to take care of a so-called lost ship of his with a lot of weapons in exchange for some of the arsenal, and also take care about Boris Dime, the traitor that made it possible for Punchinello to get the ship. You proceed to kill baddies and enter various warehouses and eventually make a trailer roll into a bridge, thus creating a path. You enter afterwards another warehouse full of bad guys, and this is the level in which you put the sniper rifle to good use, as it can be seen. And after shooting a bunch of explosives in order to progress, you reach the ship and kill more baddies, alongside Boris Dime. Then Vladimir thanks you as you pursue to get Punchinello by yourself in a kind of a stupid manner. This mission is kind of both weird and stupid at the same time from my point of view, as Max, in his head, thinks that making a deal with Punchinello, even as a fake one, would be a good idea. He calls Punchinello and they agree to meet at the mobster's restaurant.
You know my restaurant?
Yeah, I know it.
One out.
Punchinello's restaurant had seen better days.
Which turns out to be a trap. I mean, nobody really saw that coming. As the restaurant starts to burn, you must dodge the flames and reach a safe area where you start the killing spree once again. You exit the area through the sewers where Vladimir awaits and takes you to the Punchinello mansion. Next you get to the manor just to see that someone else already caused some damages, presumably Mona Sachs.
Someone had graciously left the back door open for me and killed the guards. My money was on Mona.
And get to kill the trio of mobsters that guard Punchinello, getting them one by one.
One down, two to go. Two down, one to go. Punchinello's trio was done for.
But before reaching Punchinello itself, you also find Lisa, Mona's sister, dead, and get another call from Alfred Walden, who warns you that a bunch of guys from the special forces are coming after you.
Alfred Woden, you've got company.
And thus you reach Punchinello's office, who of course is a coward.
No, wait. I was just doing what I was told and couldn't refuse. She's someone high up, government maybe, I don't know.
and you don't even get the chance to end him, as the guys previously mentioned enter the room and do it for you.
No, I told them not to.
After killing some of them, you end up in a hallway, overwhelmed by the amount of guns aimed at you, as you also meet Nicole Horn. The boss of the organization taking care of the Valkyr drug, and fun fact, who is also portrayed by Sam Lake's mother, Sam portraying Max Payne, thus making her his son's enemy in-game. Before leaving for the Cold Steel factory, she injects you with a dose of Valkyr, and thus Max goes once again in the world of nightmares. You are again in this world imagined in Max's head, reliving this time differently his life drama. Among others, you also go into an office where you find some interesting things that I will detail at the end of this review section, and follow even more blood trails, but this time being more annoying and easier to fall off them. After reaching a crib, Max sees a version of himself that blames him for his wife's murder, thus showing the guilt that Max feels for the tragic events that happened to his family, which could have been averted if only he had the time to listen to his wife.
Max, something happened at the office today. A strange memo. Something about Vikings.
Honey, I gotta run. You can tell me all about it this evening.
Have a nice day, darling.
Afterwards, Max slowly recovers from the drug and remembers that Nicole Horn mentioned the Cold Steel factory where he starts heading. Max gets in through a balcony and starts killing the bad guys, and now there's also some laser explosive mines, so you must be careful at them. After getting through some halls of the factory, you hear that the Operation Deep Six has been compromised, and that another operation called Dead Eyes, in order to destroy all the evidence, has begun. Since Max hears that a lot could be revealed in a D6 test facility, you pursue to find it by once again wandering in these big facility rooms, including making a path in an interesting way, and getting through the facility in a more special manner later, just to find the elevator that takes you to the D6 facility. Once Max gets to the Deep Six Operation Control Center, and of course after once again taking care of a bunch of guys, he sees a logo that could have something to do with the Valkyr case. Max then proceeds to find a code in order to open a door, later releasing a scientist that helps him get through a decontamination room, and of course, as pretty much everyone else, he dies in front of you just 1 minute later. And now is revelations time, as Max finds a computer with interesting stuff on it. It's about the Project Valhalla, which was the one that involved the Valkyr drug that started in 1991 and was dropped in 1995. However, Nicole Horn continued with the project, and the ones that killed Max's wife and daughter were failed test subjects of this Valkyr drug. The reason why they had to kill Michelle was due to her finding out about this sick project that she was not able to tell Max, as he did not have the necessary time. Afterwards, you escape the facility, but first watch out for this elevator. And Max gets out in a Michael Bay movie style. With no other concluding clues to follow, Max receives a call from his old friend Bibi, who tells him to meet with him in a parking lot. Bibi was a traitor and also the one responsible for killing Alex and blaming Max for it. Carl tries to run over Max, and a killing spree across multiple floors begins until you finally corner Bibi and kill him. Later, you get another call from Alfred Wooden that tells Max he has information for him and to come to the Asgard building.
Give you the name of your enemy. Come to the Asgard building presently. We are expecting you.
Once getting to the location specified by Wooden, who welcomes him and brings him to a room with members of the so-called Inner Circle, where he tells him that Nicole Horn was the boss of the Aesir Corporation and that he had to end there, with the promise that they will clear all the accusations brought towards Max. Immediately after, some of these suit guys ambush the meeting, Max escaping by jumping through the window.
Floor show, but I decided to leave early anyway. It was only a one-story fall.
Just to later see in a surveillance room that Wooden survived and had a proud smile on his face, as you find out later that Horn was blackmailing him and other members with compromising tape, some of it supposedly coming from that prostitute's room I have mentioned earlier in this section.
I was sure the kinky sex was nowhere near Alfred Woden's worst sin.
Max also finds later some plans left by Wooden that help him in his revenge path, as he afterwards heads towards the basement of the building. You come to find a room full of crime files linked to the Inner Circle members, as Max afterwards decides to pursue towards Horn in the Azir headquarters, but not before fighting his way off towards the exit of the building. The next level takes Max close to the end of his so-called adventure, getting inside the Azir headquarters. Since the guys there became aware of Max's presence, they lock the access to all the elevators in the building's mainframe, as you start killing baddies or getting killed as you fight guys with grenade launchers shooting at you. You go up a few floors, avoid some traps, and later find Mona Sachs coming out of an elevator with the task to kill Max, as she was hired by Azir, but she doesn't do it, instead wanting to also end Horn's madness, just to get shot later by some guards.
A gunshot boomed and she fell down in slow motion. She was a nice girl.
And after fighting them, you see the elevator coming back down, but without Mona, meaning that she survived. You then go up and down using more elevators, while also getting ambushed by a helicopter and having to jump towards another elevator. Later finding a server room. You destroy these servers, which grants Max the access to the upper floors where Nicole Horn was hiding.
All Horn's locks were now offline.
As she was not in her office, Max goes to the penthouse of the building. You find Nicole, which doesn't give up easily, as she traps Max in a room where he has to kill more guards. And hide from the gunfire coming from a helicopter. Max proceeds towards the higher floor in the building whilst killing the remaining bad guys and finding Nicole. She quickly runs away in a secret passage towards the top of the building, but Max easily finds the way to get up to her. Nicole Horn gets in a helicopter, but due to the heavy snowstorm, it cannot immediately lift off, giving you the time to break the cables of the radio tower. And finally delivering the ending of Horn by breaking this radio mast, which falls on top of the helicopter and kills her. The game ends the same way it began, but now with Max feeling kind of released of his guilt.
Hold it right there.
My ghosts released me from their haunting. Down below, New York City glittered like diamonds on black velvet.
As he is escorted by the police, but not before seeing Alfred Wooden in the crowd grinding at him, as Max hopes he will keep his promise he made towards him.
It wouldn't be over till the man with the patch would say so. He'd say the right words. I knew he would. He'd better. Woden grinned smugly. It was the grin of a winner. That made two of us.
And this was the story of Max Payne 1. I must also mention at the end the movie adaptation of Max Payne, and that's pretty much it, as I do not really have anything good to say about it. Neither literally everyone that has ever seen it, but I don't know. Stay tuned for the new Max Payne movie, as there are rumors there is another one in the works. Yay! A multiplayer mode was also supposed to be part of the game, but the idea was scratched during development. There also are Easter eggs in the game, such as the multiple John Woo references,
Password. John Woo. Come on. Okay, John Woo. All right.
the developers making fun of the game itself,
I'm disturbingly familiar about the letter before me. The handwriting was all pretty curves.
You're in a computer game, Max.
The truth was a burning green crack through my brain, weapon statistics hanging in the air glimpsed out of the corner of my eye, endless repetition of the act of shooting, time slowing down to show off my moves, the paranoid feel of someone controlling my every step. I was in a computer game. Funny as hell, it was the most horrible thing I could think of.
or trying a so-called mock-up at Microsoft.
Corporation is about to become an even bigger monopoly than Microsoft ever was.
The Angry Red Army, the way I like to call it, or the fact that Max Payne can play some instruments, including a piano, which when interacted with, plays the main theme of the game. The passion of the developers can also be seen by observing the exit messages that sum up the suffering of the main character. And also, if you finish the game on the highest difficulty, you unlock a secret arena type level, besides other various things and secrets. You can also hear some stories from various TV shows found throughout the game.
Down to the finest detail, except that he's
Then there also are some cheat codes that when enabled can make your life easier or can just be used to create chaos among the V addicts from the New York City streets. In conclusion, the graphics were very impressive for that time, having interesting animations, physics and particle effects, and the bullet time mechanic being the cherry on the cake. The audio is not necessarily mind-blowing, but it is still more than adequate, and for the time the recorded dialogue was quite good, not to forget about the easily rememberable soundtrack of the game. The gameplay remains a critical part of the game, as the shooting is really fun and the bullet time mechanic turned Max Payne into a legendary game for a lot of players. And by the way, it is still quite enjoyable to play this game even after more than 20 years after its release. The story is maybe the best part of the game due to the ways it is told, through the excellent graphic novel art and gameplay, the noir style being executed extremely well in Max Payne. The characters are interesting, and despite some things that could have been told clearer, it is a very well written storyline. The final score for Max Payne is an 8.5 for that time, and I think this score still stands even today, taking into consideration the quality of the games released lately. Max Payne also fully deserves the Golden Age Award and the Legendary Status Award for its popularity, as it will remain one of the most influential games in the entire gaming industry. At the end of this review, I want to say that I have really high hopes for the remakes of the first two Max Payne games, as they are done by Remedy Entertainment itself, and I don't think they will want like their legacy to suffer. Also, if you want to see what happens in the next installment in the Max Payne franchise, stay tuned for the second part in this series. At the end of the review, and as usual, I would like you to write in the comments below your favorite memories involving this game, Max Payne. And if you enjoyed the content, watch other videos from this channel, please subscribe, like this video, share it and turn on the notification bell for more videos like this. This was Dave from Golden Age Gaming Productions, and you just watched the Golden Age Gaming review of Max Payne. And remember, time is ticking away, but memories are here to stay. See you next time.